Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I'm still showing you different instruments and things that we use to teach music with that are helpful. And I want to just remind you before I begin, this is a soprano recorder, sometimes called a Descant. This is what most people play. It's in the key of C, which is very handy. It means that you don't have to transpose if everyone else is playing in a different key. You don't have to transpose it because if you have a note that's an A and you play it, it's going to always be an A. So it's very handy to have instruments in the key of C. This is also a Descant, and I like to bring it in because I want to show that they do come in different colors. The other thing is this has been so divided up with plastic that you can see clearly all of the different sections of it. For example, this is going to be the head joint right here. This is going to be the body of it right here. This is going to be the foot joint. Many woodwind instruments break up in that three kind of pattern. And in the back, that thumb hole is surrounded by plastic, so it can be easily seen. Most of them are not. I mean, you automatically know where you put your thumb. And there's no demarcation on here that shows that this is an instrument that's a Baroque, but some of them are Baroque. The fingering is a little different. I do like this instrument. It's very nice. Well, the reason I want to tell you all of this is that I'm going to start bringing in my alto more. And I'm going to start showing you fingerings on the alto, even though the fingerings are meant for the soprano, because of the fact that the finger spacing, it'll be just so much easier to see. Like this is a G, B, A, G. It's easier to see this, and it's easier to see the spacing of the notes and where you put your fingers than if I show it to you, although I'm showing you the same thing, on the Descant. It's just easier to see it on an alto. So remember, the alto is in the key of F. The Descant soprano is in the key of C. They're not going to sound alike because of the differences in the key, but because the alto is so much larger and the holes are so much easier to see, I may actually start showing you some fingerings on the alto, even though they're meant for the soprano, just so you can see it more clearly. And of course, I'll tell you when I'm doing that, so you'll know that that's what I'm doing. So I brought in some other instruments, instruments that aren't exactly what we normally play, just to show them to you. For example, this is a fife. How do you know that it's a fife? Well, you hold it up and you play it like you would a flute, but the mouthpiece is just a hole. I don't know if I can get that so that you can, yeah, that little black circle there, right up here, that's the mouthpiece. And you just play across it. You blow across it like you do a flute. Now what you can't see is that there's a block right in here. I mean, I can touch it with my finger, I can see it if I look in the mouthpiece, but it's a block because when you blow an instrument, you have to have all the air going in one direction. If you're playing a flute, then the flute will have a cap on it. And it's nothing really to see, it's just a little cap. The piccolos have them as well. Other instruments have them. With this, it's a block and it's in the inside, you know, so you can't see it, but it forms the same function. The air has to go in one direction. If you're playing a recorder, or a saxophone, or clarinet, or anything else, then of course the instrument's in your mouth. That acts as the block so the air can't come back. The air has to go in one direction. I'll be doing something with the physics of sound pretty soon so you can see it. But I did want to bring in this little, and I've had it here before, and this was made in Morocco, and it is considered to be an end end-blown flute. With the end-blown flute, the labium is practically to the top. Right where I have my finger here is the labium. The mouthpiece is just a little tiny crack. It's like a little bit of a line right where I can see it. I hope you can see it on TV. I can see it on the monitor. And then, of course, you have to get your mouth between that little tiny mouthpiece and that labium and not cover. You have to cover the mouthpiece, but you can't cover the labium. And they really do play well, but they're kind of odd because on top it's just flat. You have that little tiny opening, a very small opening for a mouthpiece, and right below that, on the back side, is the labium. So the labium's on what the recorder would consider to be the wrong side. The mouth, your front part has to be where your fingers go, left on top, right on the bottom, and then the labium is up here, see, on the back side, and the little crack right on top. So you don't actually see a mouthpiece when you're looking at the front of it. You do see the place where people put their fingers, because the finger holes, of course, have to be on top. They have to be visible, you know, but the mouthpiece is actually kind of backwards, but it still works and plays well. So I wanted to kind of show you that. There are a couple of other things I wanted to show you, and one of them is a sound tube. Now, technically, the sound tube is not an instrument, but it creates sound. So I'm going to, the way to do it, of course, is to swing it around. I'm going to ask my director, Rick, to come in and to make as much sounds as he can on it by swinging it around. Thank you. You can get sometimes 2 or 3. In fact, he did. He got 2 or 3 tones out of it. Well, why is that important? This teaches us about sound. We swing it around, and what you have to have are molecules, and the molecules have to be in motion. It doesn't matter that as it's swinging around, some of the air would be coming out both ends, because we're not looking for sounds in order to be able to play. You know, we're not going to be able to play a scale on it, but we just want to show that it's molecules moving that causes us to have sound, and that sound comes out in vibrations, and the vibrations cause the eardrum to vibrate as well. When you have something that's vibrating at a certain speed, it causes other things that are similar to it to vibrate also, and that's where you get resonance. You can have, for example, an orchestra with all the instruments on stage, and you can have somebody playing something, or 2 or 3 people playing something, and suddenly an instrument that's not being played sends forth sound, just like the sound that's actually being played. And I've heard it with drums. With drums, you know, that people can be playing, and all of a sudden you get vibrations on the drums. It sounds like somebody's playing it. Or certain instruments that have strings on them, all of a sudden the strings will vibrate, and they're making sound just like the sound that people are playing, but they're not playing. There's no one there. But what that is resonance, vibrations causing other things to vibrate. And when you get sound, you get molecules moving, and for most instruments, this is not truly an instrument, so it doesn't apply so much to this, but you get instruments that are playing, and the molecules are moving. And when you blow into an instrument, the molecules hit up against each other, and they're moving, and they cause vibrations. If I take the recorder and I play something on it, the tone, and I'm just only going to play a tone. Okay, so I put air that is moving the molecules in the inside of the instrument, and they vibrate. Sound has vibrations. The faster the vibrations, the higher the pitch. So if I play something like this, the higher the tone, the faster the vibrations are going. But at lower the tone, the vibrations are still moving, but not as fast. And the lower or the larger the tube, the deeper the tone's going to be, the lower the tone's going to be. So one reason that we have to have tubing on instruments is to get the tones to vibrate, and also to get the pitch, so you can get a lower pitch. So if I take this alto, okay, it's a lower pitched instrument. So the longer the tube, the lower the pitch. And then the lower the pitch, the vibrations aren't quite as fast. The higher the pitch, the faster the vibrations. And when you get vibrations that go faster, they're going to cause other things to vibrate. Anything that has like a string or something like that, or a reed, and it could vibrate. And when it vibrates fast enough so it mimics the sound that somebody else is playing, and that's called resonance. So it's not unusual to be in an orchestra, to be playing, and all of a sudden the drums are kind of rolling. You can hear the rumbling of the drums, and nobody's playing them, but that's the resonance, you see. And for that not to happen, they would have to cover the drum with something, or stop, move the instrument so it wouldn't catch the vibration so well. But that's a normal physical thing that happens. So it's interesting to see what can happen with instruments like that for resonance. Now, this is a vuvuzela. The vuvuzela, I believe, is Australian. I have 3 or 4 of them, and they are kind of like a signaling instrument. They're not an instrument where you have tone holes. They don't have reeds. You're not going to be playing a song on them. But I remember when the Olympics were held in Australia, that they had a lot of vuvuzelas, and I came to think of it as an Australian instrument because they're played everywhere. They're blown everywhere. You blow into them, and they're a signaling instrument. They signal, they make sounds, but they don't. You can't play a song on them. Something like that. Now, I got 2 tones out of it. I'm not blowing hard. If you blow hard enough, I think it sounds a little like a trombone. But I'm not going to try doing that. I've had a fairly recent heart attack, and I'm not going to put my heart under that pressure. But normally, I would just let it rip and let it blow. Now, during the Olympics in Australia, lots of people had these. And every time somebody would make a point or whatever it was they were doing, they would blow the horn. And enough so the announcers said it bothered them because they had trouble hearing what they were doing over the sounds that the vuvuzelas were making. So this is an Australian instrument. So what do you have when you have sound? Well, you have moving molecules. You move them by the way that you blow, or the way that you strike an instrument, or the way that you strum an instrument. You get the molecules moving. This mouthpiece is a little like a brass mouthpiece, which is why if I play it loud enough, it'll sound something like a trombone, because it's shaped like what a trombone or what a trumpet mouthpiece would be like. For woodwinds, they have reeds, but for vuvuzelas and for trumpets and for French horns and basses and so forth, the brass instruments all have mouthpieces that are shaped a little like the vuvuzela, and you push your air in. I mean, I have brass mouthpieces. I didn't bring any in, but I have them because I have a trombone, and I have a nice one with a trombone, and they make sounds. With the woodwind instruments, for most of them, for saxophones, clarinets, oboes, and bassoons, 4 of the major reeded instruments, you put the reeds of the mouthpiece in your mouth and you tongue it. Now, I can tongue with an instrument like this. It's still in my mouth. The instrument is about 1/3 in my mouth, and what I have to do is I have to put my tongue I have to put my tongue on the mouthpiece, and to myself I say ta or ti, and I bring the tongue back like you're saying that. And then you see, you separate the notes that way, otherwise the notes run together. So you need to have clear, distinct notes. So for most notes have to be tongued. And one of the first things you learn after you learn how to make noises on it and get tones out of it is that you learn to tongue. So this is very interesting. And if you have something like a keyboard, now I brought in one of my melodicas. The melodica, I have one that looks like a keyboard. I didn't bring it in today, but I have one that looks like a keyboard. You have your, I should hold it this way. You have your black keys and you have your white keys. 3 black and the white keys just run up and down. But you have 3 black ones followed by 2 black ones followed by 3 black ones and so forth. The black ones handle the flats and the sharps, and the white ones just the regular notes. Now with that, you see a lot of them are either battery powered or electric powered, or they work with strings inside the instruments, different strings inside the instruments, and there are mallets so that when you play a certain note, then a mallet strikes a certain string and it makes a sound, and you get that all the way up and down the keyboard. The keyboard is really quite complicated. You know, it has a lot of notes on it, but it's really quite complicated in terms of the way that the strings are. And a person who is really forcefully playing the piano will sometimes break a string because the mallet in the inside was going to hit the string so hard if it's a loud note. And so therefore you can break strings and you have to have an instrument restrung, so or some strings replaced. So it's just interesting to see so much about how much the instruments are alike and how much they're different. I'm going to start showing you some charts. I won't get very far because we don't have that much time left. But if you look at this chart, whoops, I'm going to fold this a little differently. What I want to show you is the range of music, and I'm going to be doing this on the next segment as well. The range of music. Just see, if you can, how the instruments play so high and so low. Now with this, and I'll be showing it to you with other sharps, and so that you'll really get a chance to see it. I've got bigger charts here to show you basically the same thing, which I'll be doing basically on the next segment because we don't have that much time left. You have all of these lines here. These are staffs. Now if you look behind it, you can see a little bit of the staffs that I have on this poster thing, that I put my posters on. Like this is a staff, 5 lines. This is a staff, 5 lines. This is a staff, 5 lines. So this on top is going to be the treble clef. And this on the bottom is going to be the bass clef. And right in the middle, you have this note that has 1 line through it, and that's called the middle C. All of the notes to this way, to the right, are on the treble clef. And you can see how high up it goes. Now it actually goes up further than this, but music can only be written so that there are 5 lines to get to the C here. If this is the middle C, then this is another C, 1 octave up. This is another C, 1 octave up. And this is another C, 1 octave up. There is 1 more octave, but music is not written for it because it is so high that you really can't write music for it. You'd have to have several more of these lines, which are called ledger lines. So let me show you this on a bigger chart, and then we'll kind of close with that, and I'll begin again next segment, just continuing this. So here's a big chart. It'll be easier to see on a larger chart. You can see there's a large keyboard here, a lot of notes. And this is like almost like a full-size keyboard. It's 2 notes shy of being a full-fledged keyboard. But look at all of these notes. The middle middle C is right here, and that's this note right here, and it has a line through it, and everything here is on the treble clef, and everything here is on the bass clef. Now, of course, when you're playing piano, you use both clefs. You use bass clefs, and you can reach down from the right hand, which is usually played for these notes. You can reach down and play the left-handed notes. The left hand can reach up and play the right-handed notes. So there's nothing limiting about it. But in terms of writing music, this is almost the entire keyboard except for two. There are two notes missing down there, but we never use them playing woodwinds, and it's not relevant in pertaining to what I'm talking to you about. But this is all right. This is all clef, right-handed treble clef, left-handed bass clef. I didn't put all the stems on them, but that's what it is. So where do the woodwinds play? The instruments that I've demonstrated to you, the clarinets, the saxophones, the flutes, the oboes, bassoons, some of them I brought in, some of them I haven't, and also the woodwind instruments such as the recorders, the simpler wind instruments, the song flutes, the tonettes, the flutophones, all of those instruments, they play from here, middle C right here, up to about here. They have a 2-octave range, most of them, either 1 to 2-octave range. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So they have a 2-octave range, and that range is right here on the piano. Now the flute can go higher. The flute can go way up to this C. So you have middle C, here's your mid-range C, here's your high C right here, and that would be this C right here. Then you have the C above high C, that's this one right here. There is another octave above that, but music is not written for it because you couldn't read it. So they use a sign. When it's very high, they use 8 VA. And 8 VA means take this octave and play it an octave higher. It can't be written for, or you'd never be able to read the music. But take this and play it an octave higher. That's what the piano can do. So from here to here is what the woodwinds usually do. The flutes can go from here to here, and beyond that, the piano can do another octave. Now, I just want to impress upon you how many, many, many notes there are. And even if you have an instrument that plays only 1 octave from here to here, that gets repeated on higher octaves. You have the 8 notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and it gets repeated. In a higher octave or in a lower octave, it gets repeated. So you can just play, if you can play all the notes, but you may have to play them at a lower level or a higher level. And this from here to this here, this is your 2 octaves. And when I show you fingerings or show you things on a music scale, I'm usually showing you just this section. I don't have a need to show you this. I don't have a need to show you that because we're not dealing with it. But you need to see it so you know what it is. So I'm doing an octave or 2 octaves. The flute would be up here, and then the piano the rest of the way. You know, we are limited in what we hear, but we hear a lot. Why can't we hear everything? The vibrations are so high, so fast, or so low, so soft, so low, that our ear can't pick it up. We could only hear so many sounds. So when I play, say I go and play, okay, it goes a certain range. If I play C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, let me see, start at A. I'm going to stop at A. When it gets to a certain scale, the scale just repeats itself, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it goes back to A again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you can start a scale with C, you can start a scale with A. Now I'm just going to show you one more thing because we're kind of closing off here in terms of time. This is your C. It's always to the left of these two black notes. So that's a C, and that's a C, and two below that is an A, like the beginning of the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and right here it switches back to A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, then back to A. Why doesn't it go higher than that A, other than octaves? Because we can't hear it. You know, animals can hear more than we can. I think in the universe there are a lot more sounds than what we can hear, but we are limited by our own ear mechanisms as to what we hear. So when you go from A to A, you go to A to G, you go back to A again because the ear's not capable of hearing anything else. So I'm going to close it here, and we'll work more with this next time, in next segment. So please join me then.